Hey folks, this vid is here to answer questions about a phrase I frequently use, Fundy Atheist. A couple of people have objected that that sounds like an oxymoron. They'd be right if the connotation were strictly religious, but it's not. To begin, let's offer some history. We need to go back in time on my website here.
Not this far back.
Ah yes. Now some years ago I was first introduced to the term Fundy Atheist. One of my readers had put together a small list entitled, "You Might Be a Fundy Atheist If," after the Jeff Foxworthy redneck gag. I took on that list and invited readers to contribute. Here are some of the funnier ones we had. Now those will give you some idea what I mean by Fundy Atheist, but let's get something straight. I didn't make this phrase up, nor did my Christian reader for that matter. In fact, here's some interesting data on some of the earliest uses I could find. So, in light of all this, what is a Fundy Atheist? By now it should be clear that it is an atheist who acts in some way like a fundamentalist Christian. And not so coincidentally, that's what many of them used to be. There are a few defining characteristics we could talk about, but there's one in particular that stands out and causes me to use the term most. Let's put these two guys side by side to compare. Hey guys, what do you think of the Bible?
The Bible? I take the Bible seriously. When it says something, I assume it means what it says.
Yeah, notice something? They said exactly the same thing. In this case, the defining characteristic is that they both assume the Bible is best interpreted in a very strict literal fashion. No subtleties to grasp at, little or no symbolism to figure out, no layers or texture of meaning whatsoever.
Hey, now wait a minute.
Shut up. Let's look at an example of the kind of diseased thinking this sort of mentality produces. Take this verse from Exodus. Now some commentators have proposed that when this text refers to blood, it's not meant to be so much literal as descriptive. In other words, because it looked like blood, smelled like blood in some way, the word blood was chosen to describe it. And in turn, some commentators say it was what we call some sort of red tide. Now, I'm not going to weigh in on which side is right in that debate, but I do want to point out the kind of goofball reasoning a Fundy Atheist will use in these situations.
What do you mean, red tide? Come on, the Bible says it's blood. Take the Bible seriously. When it says blood, it means blood. Sheesh.
Yeah, that's how goofy they get. Here's the thing, though. Every object could be said to have certain levels of observational properties. Some are way more accessible than others. Using blood as an example, we can list a number of the most obvious observational properties, the sort of thing anyone with 5 senses can detect. For example, that it's red. You don't need any special talents to see that. You don't need a microscope, and you don't need a team of phlebotomists. On the other hand, blood also has many less accessible properties, things you would need a microscope or a team of phlebotomists to discover, or at least a book written by someone whose knowledge goes back to that kind of discovery. For example, that it contains hemoglobin. Now, of course, when we define blood, the semantic range of the word is inclusive of properties that are both obvious and obscure. But in the time of the Bible, that just couldn't be true. There's just no way that semantic range of the Hebrew word we translate blood could include such properties as includes hemoglobin. So despite what these guys say, they're not taking the Bible the least bit seriously, because what they fail to do is try to understand it as the people who first wrote and read it did. Instead, they impose their own meaning and understanding. Now, one other thing before we finish. These guys might shoot back with any number of wacky excuses to preserve their views. For example, they might say that my take on this verse in Exodus can't be true because God, being omniscient, looked into the future and would have known that people might get confused by the use of the word blood. Then they'll point to 1 Corinthians 14:33. Well, that's wacky for a couple of reasons. One is that Paul's statement is made in reference to a situation in Corinth in which people were interrupting each other in meetings, not matters of difference of opinion on how to interpret a Bible verse. Second, under the circumstances I'm describing, God isn't the one authoring the confusion. These guys are. In that respect, it's, again, kind of funny, because the Fundy Atheist professes to have abandoned authoritarian religion. In reality, they're still stuck in that same mindset. So, there you go. Now you know why and how I use the term Fundy Atheist, and why I think both of them are, See you next time.